It is now 7:30, and I call this meeting of Sylvania City Council on April 19th, 2021 to order. For the clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Cavallini. Here. Mr. Fry.
Here.
Mr. Haynem.
Here.
Mr. McCann.
Here.
Mr. Richardson.
Here.
Ms. Stout. Here. Mrs. Westphal.
Mrs. Westphal is excused. She's out of town on family business. However, 6 members of council are present, so a quorum does exist. I welcome our guests this evening. It's my understanding that we're going to talk about Cushman Road with you, and I'm glad you're here. Welcome that you're here. And I will change the agenda once I get down to it to move you up in the agenda. I welcome you to join us in our Pledge of Allegiance this meeting, led by Mr. Richardson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions to the agenda. I would like to make a couple of changes. First, we are going to withdraw from the agenda item number 11, which was authorizing compensation to Mr. and Mrs. Duvall for tree removal, but that is not ready to bring to council for approval. So item agenda number 11 is deleted. However, I would like to add as 4A, following the approval of the meeting minutes, an update and discussion of the Cushman Road Improvement Project. As agenda item 7, which is accept a DORA application, I am recommending that we move agenda item 12A, which is a report of that of the Building and Grounds Committee, as part of that agenda item to be given before we move on with the DORA application.
So, Mr. Mayor, is that 7A then, or?
We'll just make it 7A, and then action. You don't take your action or accept it until we hear that committee report. That's all.
Great, thank you.
That's all I have. Mr. Fry, any additions or changes to the agenda?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Members of council? Hearing none. Mr. Sanford, any changes?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schreier, you're on the Zoom meeting.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Snor, you have joined us in the room. Any changes?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Aller, you're present as well.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And Mrs. Bryant.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the agenda for this evening's meeting is approved. Agenda item 4 is approval of the regular meeting minutes from our last meeting on April the 5th. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the minutes for the council meeting of April 5th, 2021 as submitted. Second.
The moved and seconded to approve the April 5th meeting minutes as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and those council meeting minutes are approved as submitted. Now, to add an agenda item 4A, an update and discussion about the Cushman Road project. I received an email from Mrs. Duvall this morning, and I drove up to take a look at the project. I understand that Mr. McCann did as well, just to see what the conditions are that were being discussed in the email. Construction is ongoing, and it's my understanding that the project contractor has been moving the project right along, but it is not complete. It appeared that they might have been in some cleanup at the south end when I got there, but the road was blocked with additional excavation or contouring of the ditch. And near the top of the incline, So I turned around. The broom had been going, the power broom had been going on the south end, but I turned around and went around and detoured around and came in from the north so I could see what was going on up there as well. There are issues. Obviously, the contractor has made a lot of dirt. It's a construction site. And I don't think that is being complained about. But the issue is the ditch, I believe. And Mrs. Duvall, you're welcome to come up and give council a similar discussion or description that you did in your email. I'm not sure whether they all received a copy of that. I think they may have.
I'm pretty sure.
I asked my office to send it out to everybody, but
Received it.
you're welcome to talk to us, right?
Okay. Well, Sharon Duvall, 5824 Cushman Road, Sylvania. I guess I don't know exactly what to say besides what my email did say. A lot of us feel misled that we were not told exactly what was going to happen to our yards. I was in shock when they started to put a ditch in my front yard on Wednesday. I haven't been able to sleep right since. I've never had problems with water. I know they're saying this and that. There's reasons for it, but I've lived there most of my life, and it just is really, really disturbing to me that they have just destroyed my front yard. We had to take out a bow hedge for this, and I knew when Joe came out that they would be using our property to put water lines in. And that's pretty much all we were told. We were not told that our property would be totally changed by this. I do have 4 more trees that have been destroyed, which Joe said will be compensated for. I'm kind of going back and forth with the cost of those trees. And we had a sprinkler system also that he said we can have our contractor fix.
And that's the agenda item we took off. We're still negotiating that.
So we're still negotiating that. But I have pictures of my front yard before and after. I can pass them out. Before the ditch and my neighbor's ditch.
Where is your house? Where is your house in comparison to where they were? Where is your house on the street in comparison to where they were digging this morning? Were you north of that?
Well, we're kind of right in the middle of the street. We're right on.
Kind of the high point?
Yeah, we're kind of like, here's the hill, and we're about right here. So we're right close.
On the north side of the
Pete is next to me, and he's kind of at the bottom of the hill, but not quite to the bottom.
There are a few houses there that I was surprised how close to the street they were, which means they're close to this new school.
Right. And my yard is pretty close to the street compared to other houses. A lot of them are set back farther. And so right now they're just taking, half of my front yard is pretty much dug into. And there's another line there today that they're going to go back to grade it. So the trees that are there will have to be taken out. But we were told it would be a swamp. And the way Joe made it sound is like a little dip in the road coming out to the road. So I'm thinking kind of like a curve thing, and so that was okay in my mind. But we weren't told we'd have tiles under the driveway. We weren't told we would have tiles under our sidewalk. We knew the sprinkler system would be messed up, but like right now, where do I put a sprinkler system? In a ditch? It just, so much of it doesn't make sense to me because we have never had a water problem. I know down the street there's a water problem, but I don't understand why they don't tile the whole ditch and fill the whole thing in. Where else in the city of Sylvania do we have ditches like they're putting in my front yard? I just can't imagine that happening anywhere else in Sylvania. And Joe made it sound like it was a financial problem, that the city did not have enough money to come in and do it the right way. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but when I look at my street, it's just devastating to me. They wiped out all the trees on the opposite side to put the water lines in. It used to be a beautiful road. I know it's an older road. It's not in, big new development in Sylvania. We do have Sunrise Circle that's down at the end of our road that is all, it has sidewalks, it has curbs, it's really nice, but you come to Cushman and it's, they just put a big, huge ditch in. And when I look at my street, and I know it's not finished, I'm sure it'll be a little bit better when it's finished, but I've still got a ditch in my front yard.
The neighborhood to the north, those curbs and sidewalks and paving were put in by a developer, I would assume. And the developer paid for that, and the people who bought the properties paid for it as well.
Right.
I'm not sure. to the east of Cushman, there are a couple of other roads, including Acres, that are not curved roads with curved stormwater inlets. I don't know if there's a ditch along there or not, but it's actually.
Acres doesn't have a ditch.
Acres has curves and most.
That's right, Acres does. That was approved, you're correct.
Yeah, Acres been improved.
Yeah.
They improved in Acres and it has curbs. I don't know, does Acres have sidewalk?
No.
I mean, there are neighborhoods around there where it doesn't have sidewalks and it doesn't have curbs.
Right.
But,
And I know some of the people are asking for sidewalks and I wasn't really, I like my old road how it was. I loved it. We have a really nice piece of property. We have a great piece of property in Sylvania. I've lived there most of my life, raised my kids there. It hurts. And I'm very sad about it. And I really don't want a ditch in my front yard. And I don't want my husband to have to mow a ditch. We've kept our yard immaculate. If you saw my backyard, you would not believe that it's awesome. I have a huge garden that I grow most of my food in. I'm really proud of my property. And I'm proud of where I live. And thank you.
Thank you for coming.
And I thank you, Mayor, for coming out and looking at it too. Taking the time.
Mr.
And Brian.
McCann joined as well. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I referred that back to Mr. Aller, and I'm sure that he's going to talk to Joe Shaw, who is an engineer as well, and we'll look at possible changes to the scope of the work. Contractor is still on site. I don't know what answers are possible or what they would cost. I know that this project is being done entirely with city tax dollars. It's not an assessment project to you. So we need to look at what alternatives are at this point of the project and see what's possible.
Okay. And I agree with that. I understand that. I feel like they have spent money they didn't need to spend on the hill, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because I really don't see why the hill.
Properties up on the top of that didn't have a drainage problem.
Right. We've never had any problems.
Alone, but I'm not an engineer.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. And I mean, even when we have downpours in that, I mean, my backyard may get a little bit of standing water in it, but the front has never had an issue.
From what I saw, it was all sand there, and that percolates in pretty quickly too.
Yeah. And we had a lot of trees around that would soak up the water too.
Yeah.
Now those are all gone. But I'm asking to little help here and, making our neighborhood look a little bit better than it does right now. I know the project's not done, but I just feel we were misled.
Oh, it's not done, but
Yeah.
the ditch is there. The ditch is
Yeah, the ditch is not going to disappear right now. It's there, and you can see the pictures. If they came and did that to any of you guys' front yard, you wouldn't be happy with it.
Did Mr. Shaw come out and discuss the project? You told me that he did, and
He
that
did,
there was just going to be a little dip.
right. And when they started dig, I called him right away because I was home that day. I'm not usually home, but on Wednesdays I have my grandkids, and I was home that day and watched him start to dig. And I called Joe immediately. He did come out, and but it's not a swale, and that's what he was saying. And I finally got him to admit to me that it was a ditch.
Yeah, I think you're referring to a swale, and what I
Swale,
looked
yes.
at, based on the pipes under the driveways, they've established the flow line at the bottom of that ditch or swale. It's not going to get higher, or it's not going to flow right.
Right.
So where the sides can change, I don't think the bottom line can.
Right.
So that's my non-engineer
Right.
assessment.
I guess I just wish someone would explain to me why we needed a ditch on the hill.
We will have our engineering department get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else want to speak? We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, actually, I lived a little farther south where I did have a ditch before. I'm sorry, my name is Bob Neary, 5728 Cushman. But my ditch had like 2 foot of grass between the road and the ditch, and then a 2-foot ditch. And now the pipes underneath my driveway are about 7 foot in. And they're ripping out half my front yard. Like hers, mine is fairly close to the road. And even what they're doing now, they stopped where they marked it, where I'm assuming where it was supposed to start towards my house. Looking at my neighbor's stuff, they stopped about 20 inches short of that. And I'm thinking it's because I got a big tree there
But I mean, there's absolutely no way that I could cut this with my lawnmower. And if I have to use a weed whacker for half my front yard,
No,
that's just ridiculous.
That's not acceptable.
It's absolutely not acceptable. I mean, all it's doing is killing property, that is.
I know that I've been told that the steepest slope going into this ditch or swale is going to be 4-in-1 or 6-in-1.
Yeah, 4-in-1 is what Joe told us on Friday when he was out there.
Yep.
But I can't believe this is 4-in-1.
I saw some that were steeper than that today.
Yeah.
They're not done either.
I understand it's not done.
But if you're gonna make it a shallower slope, it needs wider width. So I'm not sure what the status of your front yard is,
Yeah.
but
Well, they've actually put in the extra dirt on my ditch today.
there are houses that, maybe yours is one of them, where half of the front yard is now in the dug up swale area.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks for your comments. All right. We appreciate you being here. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, and so there's. Is this different than what we originally designed?
No, I don't think it is, but it's different than what the homeowners were understanding it to be.
Okay.
Engineering drawings are not easy to read, and oftentimes expectations are different than what's on the drawings. And that's what I'm going to have to look into with Mr. Shaw and Mr. Aller. Mr. McCann, this is actually in your area of utilities. The water line and the storm drainage are both in yours. And I know you went out there today also. I don't know if you'd like to say any more right now.
I
We will keep you in the loop.
Yeah, I wanted to reserve comment for, I wanted to speak with Joe directly regarding the water lines. And if the swale goes down a certain amount, where are the water lines coming into the house in proximity to that in depth below the frost line? I assume that's, and
I read that in an email, or I heard that somewhere else, so that would be a concern.
yeah. So other than that, I would like to follow this and be apprised.
I don't think the service lines were an issue, though they may be now if they're not deep enough in the ground.
That's my
It was the
curiosity.
service line on the west side of Cushman that needed to be replaced.
So,
And it's being paid for out of the water fund first, and then there's some more elsewhere in the general fund for the storm drainage, and the road is being repaid as well.
Can I ask, how the road is being repaid? Will it be how it was before?
I actually need to look to Mr. Aller for that.
In regards to what?
Well, I mean,
It'll be asphalt.
yeah, it'll be an asphalt road, like.
It'll be asphalt.
Okay.
It'll still be a crowned road, drained to the sides? Okay.
same with,
Yeah, it'll be the same width.
And I do have neighbors that I think are concerned because there's a ditch there, and in spots, our road is very, very narrow. So they're thinking it would be hazardous, in the ice and that with a school bus or something else, because now there's a ditch there to end up in. And I have talked to the contractors there. I've talked to Mark Binya.
He is doing field work for
Yeah.
the city,
Yeah.
checking on the contractor's work.
I've talked to my brother-in-law, David Bondi, who I think you're
Former city
familiar with.
employee.
And I don't want to put anyone under the bus or anything, but most of them have told me they do not understand why there's a ditch at the top of a hill, coming down a hill. So that's,
I never asked that question to Mike as well.
thank you.
All right. Thank you for your patience.
Was there any kind of study done to see how much it would have been to enclose the rest of the ditch?
I do
I
not,
mean, there was only like 8 or 9 houses that had a ditch.
I can't answer that. I'll have to get an answer on that from the engineers.
Right.
I live on 5906, highest house on the road, the highest house on the road,
We don't have your name. Come on up.
round by 5906. I'm based at the highest point of area, the highest house, I'm about 60 above Sharon, sandy soil. There's no water table there ever.
When I was out there today, I wondered the same thing.
It's what, a 3.5 inch swale. I mean, I
3.5 inches.
I don't mind a
3.5
yeah.
foot swale, probably. Yeah.
don't mind a swale. I don't mind one, but the water drains Lowest Point.
I think.
I'm not, everyone, I can see over everyone there.
Up to the swale to get a pipe under the driveways, but you didn't really need it up there.
Yeah,
Top of the hill
that
is top of the hill. So let me get some answers for the.
the pipe on my driveway, it'll never be used. Sandy soil is going right down to China.
I lived in Sandy soil as well.
And the water pipe, I did plumbing all my life. I saw that. Why did some foreman, a contractor, should know 3 feet or 4 feet under the bottom of the swale? I don't get it. About 20 houses have the same problem. I counted. It's gonna freeze up. The risk of it's gonna freeze up.
You think the water line?
Yeah, well, mine's that the swale's right there. The place right there, they bent it with the shovel.
Oh, good.
So about 20 houses, I think, are suspicious of being frozen up this fast winter.
That doesn't sound like a good.
And that's totally crazy. Some foreman, really, if you look at my job, I'd be fired immediately. Immediately.
Should be 4 feet under the ground.
All right, thanks.
Well, I think we've got your input. I don't have any further answers for you at this time, but you brought it to our attention, and we'll be discussing it with the service department in Graven.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to move on with our agenda. You're welcome to stay, but you're not obligated to stay. Mrs. DeBoll, your item has been taken off the agenda.
Sure.
All right, that gets us to agenda item 5, which is a recorded public hearing on ordinance 12, 2021, the bicycle parking. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a public hearing earlier this evening regarding the off-street parking for bicycle parking, and during that particular meeting, there were a number of individuals, most of whom participated via Zoom, and one person from the audience who spoke in favor of it. Nobody spoke in opposition of it. The general inclination from the members of the people who were for it, they were very interested in moving this forward. As council considered the issue, it was decided that Mrs. Capolini's request that we move this to zoning for further conversation regarding the one question of whether items would versus required versus encouraged. Based on the changes that were done in the municipal planning commission meeting. So with that, it was there was a motion, there was a second, and there was an agreement that we move the off-street parking potential ordinance.
That was actually a recommendation that
A recommendation,
you need to make an actual motion here to refer it to zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So do I have I guess that's your question, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. I don't mean to disrupt it.
No, somebody should do a motion to refer to the zoning.
Then I'll make a motion to move proposed ordinance 12-2021 for off-street parking for bicycles to the zoning committee.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to refer ordinance 12, 2021 back to the zoning committee for further review. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we set a zoning committee meeting, let's go on to public hearing for issue P1 2021 to get that report as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The much longer meeting as I think most members expected, was the SUP 1-2021, which was the cell phone tower under consideration in the Northview property. And there was a presentation done by the people from Tarpon Towers who will be constructing this. They did a presentation. Members of council asked some questions. We heard from the public both online and in person, asking a number of questions and voicing opposition. There was no one who spoke in favor of it. And after a period of time, there were some questions about moving the potential tower location. Gentleman from Tarpon Towers explained to us why those locations couldn't necessarily be moved. based upon trying to provide cell phone service to the public. So with that, there was a recommendation to move the SUP 1-2021 to the zoning committee. And I'll make a motion to move the SUP 1-2021 to the zoning committee for further consideration.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to refer SUP 1-2021 to the zoning committee for further study and recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Hainham, those are both in your zoning committee. Would you like to work at setting a meeting?
I'd like to do it on Monday, May 3rd, before our council meeting, unless that's a problem.
I'm on the committee and I am available then. Good with me. Sure.
The third.
Now we'll have to figure out how much time we need. We'll schedule them both for the same time, but we'll do them sequentially.
So this would be Monday, May 3rd, prior to the city council meeting.
Right.
Sure. Who else is on the committee? Mary is.
And Mary.
Mary is not part of the meeting, but normally she can attend those meetings prior to a council meeting.
Right. So, thank you. What do you think, 6?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think 6.
Yeah, so give us an hour and a half. All right. So we'll notice them both for 6. Okay. Great.
And we need a motion to establish that.
I'll move to we establish the zoning committee meeting to consider ordinance number 12-2021 at 6 o'clock on Monday, May 3rd, here in Chambers.
Second.
And
And then we'll do the other one. We need two meetings, right? Or no?
I think you just said a zoning committee meeting, you're considering both of them.
Consider both options. All right, well, let me change my amendment to set a zoning committee meeting for Monday, May 3rd at 6 o'clock to consider both proposed ordinance number 12-2021 relating to bicycle parking and SUP 1-2021 regarding the Sylvania Board of Education cell tower. Okay.
Mrs. Capolini, you second that revised motion?
Yes. I
Moved and seconded
revised
to set a zoning committee meeting for Monday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. in these council chambers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and the clerk is directed to enter to post said meeting.
So Mayor, will we be notifying the people from Tarpon Towers? I'm assuming, Mr. Hand, you would like people here from Tarpon? Or not?
My agenda for that meeting doesn't require it.
I'm fine with that.
But I'm sure they would want to be here. Yeah.
You had a public meeting to receive comment. You don't need to receive public comment. Question is, do you need answers from that?
Yeah. No, I understand. We'll certainly.
And it is a public meeting, so you can have the same people in attendance, but it's a different meeting. You don't need to recognize and let them all say the same thing again.
I agree. Maybe that would be as simple as
It was
having a
a-
law director.
It was an orderly,
Yeah.
it was an orderly public meeting that took more than an hour. It was close to an hour and a half, and you got a lot of input, no doubt about it. A lot of information. All right. With that zoning committee meeting set, let me back off a minute. I was going to discuss it at the end of the meeting. What is city council's wants about to continue Zoom meetings for that committee meeting and the next council meeting? We left it in place for this meeting specifically because we knew there would be a lot of people that were interested. State law allows you to do it through the end of June. Mr. Silvernail is here, and I know he looks forward to doing it every meeting. And we'll do it as long as city council wants it and it's permitted by state law. The city, but there's nobody tonight on the Zoom meeting for city council other than city council and administrative staff. There were a few people on the public hearings.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
is there, if we did away with the Zoom meetings, is there a way to still broadcast it on YouTube?
I believe there is. I asked Mr. Silvernail that question. The camera can stay in place. I don't know that it's necessary for Mr. Silvernail to be here. We might be able to have a situation where Mrs. Booker or Mrs. Brining or someone else can turn it on. We will be just as that picture is over there, the broad media picture of the room, and you can hear what's going on.
As long as they can hear, yeah. That's my opinion is I don't have a strong opinion about keeping Zoom going, but I feel very strongly that we should continue streaming on YouTube, perpetually.
Thank you. Chuck, do you agree with, I put words in your mouth. Do you agree with that?
No, I do. I think that YouTube's good.
Okay, we can do that much easier than having a Zoom meeting, seems like.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, it would be simpler.
Sorry, Chuck, I'm gonna say I'm in favor of keeping the Zoom. And the reasons for that is, one, we're not really completely in the clear yet. I mean, our neighbors
We are not.
to the north are.
Lucas County has the highest case count of any place in Ohio.
So for that reason, I think we should continue with the precautions that we have established. And then the second reason is, even on tonight's meeting, I think there's a level of accessibility that allows our residents to participate in their government that would be more difficult in person. In particular, I know at one point I heard a kid in the background, and I don't think that mother would have been able to come to the meeting in the same way if we hadn't had that Zoom option.
And it's entirely possible that one or both of the issues that have public hearings tonight will be back on the agenda. The same people might want to attend by Zoom.
I agree with Lindsay. I think it does give a really nice level of accessibility for people. I mean, if staying law lets us do it until the end of June and then we can't do it anymore.
Or maybe we can find a more streamlined way to do it where you don't have to be here every
I'm
time for it.
not sure that state law prevents us. State law, at the end of June, I was under the impression allows for a public meeting to be held via Zoom. So we don't have to physically be in this space, but I don't know that the public couldn't necessarily continue to participate via Zoom. Am I correct with that, Ms. Brand?
I believe so. I don't know that every possibility has been, and I would anticipate probably an extension of that, but I don't know that for sure yet.
Right.
There's no current legislation, but you're correct. I think if you wanted to provide that option going forward, I think you could do it.
Now, personally, I completely agree with Patrick. We definitely want to stay on YouTube. I think maybe we could just monitor, see how many people participate via Zoom. If we continually get nobody showing up, then it becomes relatively self-evident that maybe it's not something that our constituents want. And if they do, then we continue, and Mr. Silver now unfortunately has to remain with us.
I would assume that you would like to have the 6 o'clock zoning committee Zoom, just like the public hearings were tonight. Because that's the one that's going to have public interest.
That would be my preference, absolutely.
Okay, you agree with that, Mr. Hayden?
Yeah.
Committee. Okay, so we will plan on it.
I love this one.
Okay, well, we will plan on it for the first meetings there in May the 3rd, and we'll keep looking forward to see where it goes. Thank you for your input. With that, I think we're ready to move on to agenda item 7, which is the door application, but we moved up item 12A, the reported building and grounds committee about the door issue. Ms. Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On April 9th, At 9:30 in the morning, Buildings and Ground Committee had a meeting, which we discussed the potential expansion of DORA. At that meeting, in attendance with the committee, containing Sue Pepperoni, Patrick Richardson, Mark Bryan, and myself. Other members present, or other people present included council members Tatum and Brian McCann, as well as administration, Leslie Brining, Bill Sanford, Kevin Allen, and Captain Miller. I provided a quick update of where the discussion was left at the last council meeting, then invited the administration to share progress. Bill Sanford offered an updated proposed boundary, including Maplewood from Main to Summit, Summit South from Maplewood to House of Him and upcoming development, and Main Street north to Erie to include Angela's Angels and the Historic Village. Council discussed previous concerns from residents north of Erie regarding DORA, but given no major issues have occurred since DORA was enacted 2 years ago, and the high-quality experience responses and support for expansion responses on the survey, Council generally supports extending the district to Erie the committee generally supported extending the district to Erie in order to connect the interested business. I then shared input from Heritage Sylvania's board about including the historic village and the Sister City Garden. The top concerns include DORA's use during school programming, security, waste, and restroom maintenance. Council administration discussed each issue. The village's restrooms would remain closed except for special events, keeping in line with current DORA restroom use where the participating establishments provide facilities for DORA users. DORA compostable cup receptacles would be provided, and if any waste issues occur, they will be addressed as necessary. Given DORA has an experienced major security issues, it seems like an appropriate level of extra eyes if police occasionally loop back behind element 112. Captain Miller confirmed this was possible. Heritage Sylvania may want to consider lighting and seating not only for easier surveillance and reduce likelihood of issues, but also to create an area friendlier to DORA use, since over 70% of survey responses identified not enough seating as an issue. If security issues occur, they will be addressed as necessary. The survey also showed the majority of DORA use is in the evening, after school programs end. Cadence. The law director confirmed specific areas within the DORA can specify specific hours. Council generally supported including the village by either limiting the village DORA hours to after school hours or to eliminate it by saying no DORA during student programming, as long as clear signage is provided and the approach is consistent and clear to understand. In addition, given limited access to the village, the Sister City Garden and public parking should be included. Mr. Richardson proposed adding the alley to Richard Becker Place due to businesses using entrances off the alley, businesses hosting events off of the alley, and the alley's intended pedestrian priority in the recently approved master plan. Council discussed the length of the alley to include whether to connect back to Main Street via the north side of Monroe Street and the adjacent parking lot. Generally, council members and committee members present were less concerned about DORA on the north side of Monroe Street between the alley and Main Street than about east of Main due to the short travel distance and the wider sidewalk. The connection would allow a continuous pedestrian loop instead of a lengthy and likely inconvenient dead-end path. There is also potential for another participating DORA business on the south side of Main Street. Mr. Fry also noted that adding the alley sends a message to future business and development. Clear signage would be needed to present, would need to be present to show the parking lot is not part of DORA. I moved for the law director to prepare the DORA application to include Maplewood from Main Street to Summit, Summit South from Maplewood to include the future developments, Main Street north to Erie, and the historical village with limited access during student programming, the Sister City Garden, Richard Becker Place, the alley, and the north side of Monroe Street from Richard Becker Place to Main Street. Mr. Richardson seconded. Motion passed 4-0 in the committee. And we are now going to discuss the application.
All right, I am looking at this map. This is the first time I've seen the revised map. And I guess I'll direct this question towards the law director or perhaps you. Element 112 is in the current DORA. We're talking about putting the historic village in DORA. But if someone were to buy a DORA beverage at element 112 and they want to go back to the historic village, doesn't look like they can walk across their parking lot to get there. They have to take a long detour and follow a very narrow path to get there. Any input on
That's
that?
correct,
Mr.
ma'am.
Sanford, Mrs. Brining, Chief, anybody? It just, you know, you're gonna have people walking across that parking lot holding a Dora cup.
I know. We have the same issue up at Sodbuster. Technically, they're supposed to walk along the sidewalk, and I don't know, I personally not seen, but I wouldn't guess that all of them.
Well, I would guess you're right there, but they're just cutting a corner there. In this
Right.
case, this is a pretty big detour to get from one to the other. And they're gonna wave to somebody in the back and they're gonna walk back there with the garbage cup. And I really don't wanna make, that an offense. Is it because it's not
It's a
privately
parking lot.
owned? I mean, because it is privately owned, is that why we can't do it?
That's correct. The city either has to have an interest in the property, or it has to be right of way. Those are the properties that we can.
Yeah, but element 112 and the other servers of Dora alcohol, the line goes around them,
That's correct. That's just to show where the permit holders are, the liquor permit holders.
okay?
It's technically, they shouldn't be walking to the back of the building. I don't disagree with you, but that's what the law says.
All right.
Because you can't go inside of the building with the
Right.
door cup, Mr. Mayor. So like, for example, you could not go into Element or into any of these places that show it in the boundary.
You
But,
must buy it on the outside and stay on the outside.
or take, buy it and then.
How do you think that,
immediately exit.
Mr. Richardson, how do you think that's gonna work? If somebody buys one and inside the 5, they can follow the right route, but buying it at Sodbuster or Element and going back in the historic village is difficult.
In my opinion, I think that we've seen difficulties before. I think the main was when the corner part was not in the initial Dora, and now it is, and it makes it a lot easier. But we've had that, and we've had the issues with where it ends on Maplewood, going east on Maplewood, where Dora ends, people extending beyond that line.
Yeah.
And I think we've had these kind of issues before, and I think with the right signage and right education and putting this map out there on social media and what have you, I think we can get our populace on board with the program.
As part of Ms. Dow's report, she said that Captain Miller had thought about this, and I haven't discussed it with Chief Snore. How do you feel about the historic village that's not visible from the road? Patrol cars are gonna have to go back in the driveway and take a look.
Typically, that's not an area we have issues, only time will tell. I don't see it being vastly popular with hundreds of people sitting back there, it's gonna take a group of folks who have been drinking for it to be an issue. I experienced that in my first police job when I was in college, working with the village of Put-in Bay. I don't think those same scenarios will play out here. I do have concerns. There's always a conflict when people are, drinking alcohol, having little containers, and they're around motor vehicles. And it is a violation to enjoy an alcoholic beverage in or on, even sitting on the back of your tailgate with an alcoholic beverage is considered a violation. So, that it's good to keep those two things separate. I think, however, with the layout of the historical village, you pretty much have to walk through or adjacent to the parking lot. It's just something we'll have to keep an eye on. But, some of the other larger lots, I wouldn't want people cutting through there drinking, just for the mere fact of the traffic moving around too. So those are some things to consider. We don't have any really grave concerns right now, but as time goes on, we may have to, monitor those issues.
Thank you, Chief.
I also think there's an opportunity here, if we do kind of make it a path from a marketing standpoint of, I think the park back here that's sort of adjacent to the historic villages, I think it's really cool. I think it's underutilized. And I think if we can, with the right signage to direct people back there to get that way, I think it could actually be used to our advantage, sort of tunneling people through there. Because I think that's very neat. I think the village is very neat. And with that in the park, if we could funnel people back that way. I think it could lead to a lot of positive things for downtown.
Does that, there's a strip of, this might be getting too detailed, but there's a strip of grass that's between the Element parking lot and the museum's parking lot. Is there any chance that that counts as right of way? That could be a more direct path or a sidewalk on the north side of the museum? I'm just looking at, so we can't have public parking lots included in this.
Correct.
Okay. Just thinking, and I thought we were gonna be close to that anyway. I'm looking at that as to whether that might be a way, if we were to have issues in the long run, if that could potentially be made a more direct path through that.
Probably could. It would take modifications. Parts of it are elevated and I hate to have people fall. Yeah. All right, Mrs. Bryant, where are we in the process and what should city council do to
Tonight, what we need
this
to
ahead?
do is just, council needs to formally accept the application for expansion and set a public hearing date. And I believe Mrs. Cooper has proposed date for that. It has to be at least 30 days from now, and it will be published. If there's anybody else, that you would like us to communicate the date and time of the public hearing, you can. And then at that point, city council can adopt the ordinance to officially expand it.
Mrs. Cooper just told me that would be June 7th.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. We ought to have, can we do this in one motion or two to accept the application and set the public hearing date?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before we accept or consider accepting the application, just as a clarification, the permit holders for executive diners,
I did check on those today. They have not changed yet, and neither has the property ownership.
so what happens if that occurs in the interim?
We can make some minor amendments to this
Okay.
before council officially approves it. And I will be checking on those because I looked specifically at that probably around 3:00 this afternoon, just to make sure.
I just don't want to start the time clock over again. If we're
Exactly. No,
looking
I
at that.
had the same concern.
Right, okay, thank you.
So here we need a motion, Ms. Dow, to city council to accept the application and set the public hearing date for June 7th.
Okay, I move for council to accept the application, accept the DORA application for expansion and to set a public hearing date for June 7th at 6:30
Probably 7 p.m. Is that if we're
on
not?
7 p.m.
Anybody disagree? Is this controversial?
I didn't think it was that.
You tell me.
I think 7. Yeah, we've done an expansion once before. We put the park in and it wasn't a big deal. I kind of feel like 7.
And if it runs over, city council will disconvene a little later.
Okay, so I move to accept the DORA application for expansion and set a public hearing date for Monday, June 7th at 7 p.m. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the clerk is directed to advertise that public hearing with the legal ad. Thank you. We're ready to move on to agenda item 8, which is a street banner application. You have a copy of the application. There's a picture of the banner on the back. This is from the Sylvania schools. This is to congratulate their graduates. This banner was used last year as well. This one, we do have an attached ordinance. By legislation, each banner must be approved by city council. We have proposed ordinance 31, 2021. Mr. Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move adoption of, or I guess we're just approving the application. Is that?
No, there's an ordinance 8B. Go to the next sheet.
I'm sorry, I missed that. All right. Was messing with my calendar. Mr. Mayor, move adoption of ordinance number 31-2021. All members of council having received copies, I will read by title only, and approving the banner application of the Sylvania schools
authorizing the zoning administrator to indicate such approval on behalf of the city of Sylvania and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 31, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance number 31, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure.
Let me just ask a question. What happened with the balloons? Balloons are remember the chambers balloons? Are they gonna be up at the
I can
same
give a quick
time?
update. Is that what you're?
I'm just wondering if it all is gonna happen at the same time.
It is. It's moving forward. There's a meeting last Thursday with Tiffany of the Chamber now in that chair with Danny Fuller and Scott Hudson. And we were looking to Danny and Scott to pick out the combination of the colors. And I think that they moved forward and ordered the balloons. And actually the manufacturer rep was at the meeting and showed the different colors, and so they got the right colors, and he said the turnaround's pretty quick, so I think it's on schedule to happen. And they're looking at, again, this has all been coordinated with the streets department, and they've been a big help in how to have the attachment on the balloons so they can work on the cables that are up.
So the
And-
balloons and this banner are gonna be up at the very same time? Or no?
I'm not sure about the
Yes,
banner.
looks like it. Banner is late May to mid-June.
The I don't think the exact date was set, but they wanted to have the balloons. We talked a little bit about it at staff by the art festival, April and May, and then have them up through the second week in July for the golf tournament.
When you talked about the balloons, did you bring up the banner too? Like,
Yes,
and they all thought it was gonna be fine? The art people thought it was gonna look good?
we talked about that more at staff than we did at that meeting. But I think that it was brought up at the same meeting. They were aware of it.
Okay.
Will the balloons require an act of council for approval?
I guess the banner does, but the balloons don't.
No, they don't.
The banner is required because that's the way your legislation requires it.
Right.
Did we pass something for the first lights or the second lights?
The second lights we did because they needed,
The poles going down in the ground.
correct, but not for the first.
You agree, Mr. Eller? No legislation is necessary.
And that's the chamber, so it's, the chamber is the only group that has domain over Main Street, and they can put up decorations as they see fit, and no other group has that, or I guess how does that work?
They have to come through, in administration for.
So the administration that stopped there.
Yeah.
So really, any group could, they'd have to get approval from administration.
No, because I think the wires are owned by the chief.
Aha. Aha.
But any of the light fixtures and balloons were all put up in cooperation with the city crew. Puts them up.
Gotcha.
I do remember Mrs. Spratt saying that she wasn't sure that banners and balloons were compatible. I think it's because we don't want to obscure the banner with the balloon. So I think we need to take that into account for the balloon location. So maybe some balloons can't go up at that time.
I think that the number of balloons going up, I think the number is 70. And I think when we first talked to Michelle, it was 150. So I think it's.
Yes, and Mr. Aller, I know we're putting the balloons up, but I don't think we put banners up, do we?
Yeah,
We do, okay, we didn't for a while.
no, we did.
Wasn't there a discussion at the last banner?
Sorry, I asked.
Didn't one of the banners damage the building and they had to repair it? I feel like we just talked about this.
Yeah, we, we made them change the method banner. The banner that was put up damaged the building, was not the proper banner. Should have been put up.
So this one's okay though?
Yes.
And that would explain why there's a $700 fee to put it with the
Yeah, there's
application.
$100 application fee and it's $600 for us to
Now that you've refreshed my memory, I remember a contractor wanted well more than that to mobilize and come out and do it. All right. Okay, I believe we did pass ordinance 31, 2021. There's no further questions. Let's move on to agenda item 9, which is to purchase road salt. Mr. Aller. Did you know that it's April and it is going to snow tomorrow, I guess?
Yeah, we are getting snow, yeah, they say anyways. Yes, this is for, our next year's, purchase, well, I deem it next year, 21, 22. We did not use a large amount of salt this past winter. It was a fairly mild winter as far as snow and ice is concerned. We are, our thoughts are that the price for salt is going to continue to be at or below the prices that it's been this past couple of years because of that limited use that everybody had this past year. So we have the storage capacity available in the salt storage bin that we have out behind the Parks building. And so we are recommending that we participate with the ODOT program and purchase 2,000 tons this year in through their program.
How many tons of salt did we use in this past season so far?
It was, what did you say?
So far.
So far.
No, again, tomorrow.
I believe this past winter we used in the neighborhood of about 800 tons.
Mr. Mayor, it was less than this, so you have enough storage capacity to store this.
Yes.
Turning it is not an issue?
No.
Okay.
No.
We did have a roof leak in it, I assume that's been repaired?
That's been taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah. That doesn't work well with salt. No, it doesn't.
All right, any questions for Mr. Aller? We do have, as agenda item 9B, proposed ordinance 32, 2021 to authorize entering into this agreement with ODOT. Mr. Richardson in Mrs. Westfall's absence, would you be willing to read this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 32, 2021. And I'll be introducing it by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance of the city of Sylvania, Ohio to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the purchase of roadway de-icing salt and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 32, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And ordinance number 32, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 10. We have legislation ordinance 33, 2021, authorizing the city to enter agreements with a head teacher, teachers and aides for the Sylvania Safety City program. Chief Snor, we did not do this last year, did we?
No, we had to cancel last year for the,
And we are back on track for this year. Why don't you just give us an update about the program? And is it going to be bigger than usual to make up for some of these kids, or what do you anticipate?
From the latest information I have from Sergeant Pack is that the classes will probably all be full, and it sounds like Sylvania Township typically wasn't doing an afternoon session. Typically, we have a morning, very similar to kindergarten at the elementary school level. We would have a morning and afternoon session. We've run it that way for 30 years since the entire time we've had Safety City. The township program, Safety Town, is very similar. We actually use the same staff. They, in years past, have not run an afternoon session, but I understand they're entertaining that just because there's such a demand for the program this year because of the hiatus last year.
And in the past, we've allowed city and township residents to go between the programs as necessary to keep your schedule.
Right. It makes it more convenient. And the fact that, many residents of the township, their children actually go to school in the city, it makes it difficult to draw those jurisdictional boundaries on a safety program. So, yeah, we try to give some preference to residents to make sure that they get into the program one or the other. But it is filling up fast. I believe the morning sessions either are full or we've had some cancellations. It's kind of like it's a daily thing as far as the enrollments, but the morning is most popular. And that one is, if it's not full right now, will be very soon. I have had a couple of reimbursement cancellations, so that it could be down to just a few spots. But we do anticipate the program to be completely full this year.
All right. Thank you for that update. We do have the ordinance, and we actually have the names of the head teacher, teachers, and teachers' aides. And I recommend we accept this ordinance. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 33-2021 and read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into agreements with the head teacher, teachers and aides for the Sylvania Safety City program being conducted by the Sylvania Division of Police, providing funds therefore. I'd like to move adoption of ordinance number 33-2021 as an emergency measure. Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 33-2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance number 33-2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you. Agenda item 11 has been withdrawn from the agenda, and we did discuss Cushman Road already. Go to the second page. We're up to agenda item 12. 12A has also already been reported. So we are up to 12B, the Employee and Community Relations Committee meetings held on April 9th and April 16th. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have two Employee and Community Relations Committee meetings regarding food truck legislation. The first one was on April 9th. In attendance were all members of council and all members of the committee. The mayor we had from the police department, Captain Miller, and we also had from administration, Bill Sanford, Leslie Briney, and Kevin Aller, and then joining us from representing DSA were Scott Hudson and Danny Fuller. This started because DSA indicated a need to create a permitting process and some regulation regarding food trucks, and then Leslie Browning indicated that she had also added a provision for noise and generator uses as far as the food truck goes. And then there was discussion from Ms. Stowe about creating a permanent food truck spot by closing the north side of Maplewood between Main and Summit. There was also the expressed desire to not discourage food trucks, and the committee agreed that a permit process is needed similar to other communities in the area, and the administration agreed to redraw the legislation, and the committee would meet again on April 16th to discuss the further changes, which brings us to meeting number 2. The sequel meeting here happened on April 16th. We had all the same members in attendance. Scott Hudson was not here, but Danny Fuller was representing DSA. And it started with Ms. Brining stating that the application fee was reduced to $25, and there will also be a $250 fee to operate in the public right of way. Mr. Aller talked about a software program called SCEDA, SKEDDA, I think. Is that correct, Mr. Aller? SCEDA. That can be used to track the food trucks. That's used by other municipalities as far as the reservation system goes. We discussed the possibility of a full or partial closure of Maplewood east of Main and designated that as a food truck zone. Mr. McCann discussed penalty provisions, and Mr. Maynard recommended that the penalties be civil and not criminal. And Mr. McCann suggested increasing the fines for breach of this for $250. And the committee seemed like they were in favor of advancing further legislation, and we adjourned.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, one minor correction. I was not at the Friday meeting on the 16th.
You were not at the 16th meeting?
Correct.
I apologize.
Not a problem. I just wanted
My
to
notes were off.
Make sure the
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Your
Yes.
presence was felt just the same.
I
Yes.
appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you very much.
I'm reading the notes off my phone, so it's.
I know.
I didn't get the copy. Yes, thank you.
All right, what is the current status then? Is the city drawing new legislation? Have decisions been made, or are we still re-examining?
Yeah, we were gonna set another committee meeting.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Okay. You want to try to set that, or are you not ready?
I'm good to go. We have something, how about the mid? So we have something on May 3rd, and I've been told by administration, Mr. Allard, you indicated that regardless, this would not be in place by the first Friday in May, Art Walk, that was the concern. So I would suggest maybe something before the May 17th meeting. Does anybody have any?
Actually, on May 17th, or the whole, like, on May 17th, are you talking the whole week before anytime?
I was thinking before the council meeting, but if whatever you guys think.
Before the council meeting is good.
That's, find that committee.
Yes,
Um,
you, Brian.
I'm gonna be struggling to get here by 7:30 that day. I know.
Well, maybe something the week before.
I'm out
We'll
of
do it on
town
May
the
3rd.
whole, I'm out of town the whole, the 10th through the 14th.
Could we do it before the zoning committee?
I couldn't make it.
You couldn't do
No. I could do your 10th and the 14th, you're out. So that
Yes.
leaves us, and I'm out. I could do the 6th or
6th
the
is good,
7th, 6th.
or the 7th, 6th or the
Yes.
7th.
Those are Thursdays and Fridays.
Friday I'm out.
6th then.
Mr. Sanford and Mrs. Brining, will you be ready by then? Is that?
That works for me.
Morning or evening, what do you guys think?
Either one.
At the end of the day,
You said end of the day?
Yeah.
What's the end of the day for you?
anytime between 5 and 11 o'clock at night.
How about 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock sounds great.
All right, then I will make a motion to set a meeting of the Employee and Community Relations Committee for, Thursday, May 6th at 5 p.m. in council chambers.
Your second,
Second.
been moved and seconded to set a Employee and Community Relations Committee to discuss food truck legislation on Thursday, May 6th at 5 p.m. in these council chambers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the clerk is directed to advertise that committee meeting. Are there any additional committee reports to be made at this time? Or any new committee referrals? With that, we are up to agenda item 14, which is an executive session to discuss potential litigation. I need a motion to go into committee of the whole executive session.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Cappellini?
Yeah.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Haynem?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
Vote is 6-0. We will go into executive session in a minute or two City Council has returned from its committee of the whole executive session where potential litigation was discussed. No action was taken during the executive session, and no action needs to be taken at this time as a result of the executive session. We are at the end of our agenda items. I bring your attention to information item D. There's a copy in there of notification from the state of Ohio of $14,800 of funding for 2 proposed electrical vehicle charging stations. And Mr. Allery will be going to work engineering these or finding someone to engineer, I assume?
Yes, we'll be working with the manufacturer, and we're still waiting on the paperwork. We can't do anything until we get that. Then we'll start working on getting this.
We are way ahead of President Biden. These are not part of the 500,000 that he's proposing.
No.
We are in advance of that. We're going to be done soon. Okay. I believe we are done with our agenda. If there's no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and this council stands adjourned until its next regularly scheduled meeting 2 weeks from tonight on Monday, May 3rd, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all for attending.